white, Disneykas, Pijudo Ten, Notamegwanin Donji. I'm saying it in English. Hello, my name is Mariah White. I'm from the Lynx clan and I am from Whitefish Bay.
Tell them how old you are and what grade you're in.
I'm 15 years old and I'm attending grade 10 this coming year.
Bonjour, Kiana Dijinakas, Pijudo Dem, Notamegwaning, Donji. Hi, I'm Kiana White. I'm from the Lynx clan and I'm from Whitefish Bay, Ontario. I'm 17 and I'm going into grade 12 in September.
My turn?
Yeah.
Bonjour, Charlene White, Dijinakas, Mayangan Dodem, Notamegwaning Donji. Hi, my name is Charlene White. I'm their mother. I'm from Notamegwaning and I am a grade 5 teacher at Bibombe Anishinaabe School.
So I wanted to ask you guys, why did you choose to attend a high school off of the reserve? If Mariah, you want to go first?
I wanted to attend St. Thomas Aquinas because of the academics and the sports that you couldn't do in Whitefish School.
I came to Kenora because I wanted to have better academics and to play sports too.
So better academics, what do you guys mean by that?
Like, for,
Would you say courses that they don't offer at Bibombe School, they offer in town?
yeah, there's like academic applied courses you can take in
Yeah,
here.
and at Bibombe, they don't offer academic courses, so they can only take applied. But if they come to school in Kenora, they can take academic courses, and academic courses can get you straight into university without having to do upgrading.
So are you guys currently enrolled in Native Studies? And if you're not, what would you expect to learn from that course if you were taking it? If you had the option of taking that course, what would you guys hope to learn from it?
I want to learn more depth in my culture because I don't know a lot about it, but I know most about it. But I want to learn more about the history and my ancestors and all of that.
So when you say that, do you mean like in the area that we live? So Notamegwaning history, like from our community, or Treaty 3, would you want to learn about that?
Anywhere.
Everywhere?
Mm-hmm.
Mariah, what would you want to learn?
The same thing Kiana said.
So, being in Anishinaabe, how does being at a public school in town affect your identity? And if it doesn't, you can explain how that would affect maybe how you feel being in a school that isn't on the reserve and you're not immersed in your own culture. How does that affect you as a learner?
Do you act different? Does it feel different?
Feels different.
Feels
Yeah.
different? Does it feel good different or bad different, or a little bit of both?
Both.
Both? What would you say the good different is?
We know.
Something new.
Huh?
Something new.
Something new? Do you like being in a school with more students? No?
Yeah.
You do?
Mm-hmm.
So you like the vibe of more students, bigger school, kind of
Yeah.
more exciting atmosphere?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what would you say, like, the bad part would be? What don't you like about it?
How there's rarely no Aboriginal stuff going on.
So would you say, like, programs, clubs, things like that?
Hmm?
How about, like, what's around the school? Like what you see. Compare walking into Bibombe School and compare walking into TA. How you feel in each school.
Weird.
When you walk into school at Bibombe, how do you feel?
Like you're at home.
Like you're at home? What makes you feel that way?
All the teachings you feel when you step in right away.
So would you say that's because of what's like posted up around, like the language, seeing the language all around you, the paintings,
Mm-hmm.
the art, did you say, the Aboriginal teachers, the elders, community members?
Mhm.
You said that makes it feel more like home?
Yep.
Yeah.
You feel safer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now being at TA, you don't feel that way?
Doesn't feel like home at all.
No?
It doesn't. It's not like a really bad feeling though.
Yeah.
It's just different, right?
It's just different. Yeah.
Like what kind of feeling? Like what do you feel, Mariah? Like you said you don't like a lot of people. Like the difference between the student bodies.
You prefer a smaller school?
Yeah, because I like privacy and not like bumping into a whole bunch of people when you walk through the halls and stuff like that.
I don't mind it because you can make new friends.
And that just goes to their personalities, because Mariah's more quiet and Kiana's more of a social butterfly, so I could see how. But to be honest, 9 times out of 10, most Aboriginal students are like Mariah, but even more secluded.
Right.
Like they're more withdrawn, they don't participate in a lot of activities. I know like a lot of kids don't feel welcome.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that they're being intentionally made to feel that way, that's just something that they feel.
Right.
It's like an outsider coming somewhere that they don't belong.
Right.
I know I've had kids talk about that. We've had a lot of kids who attended high school in town for the same reasons my daughters go to high school in town. But at the same time, they end up always coming back to the reserve.
Right.
Like my oldest daughter, she came to school in town the same time Kiana did. Kiana was grade 9, she was grade 11, but she lasted 2 weeks and she didn't like it. And she wanted to come back. And that was one of the main things, is she just didn't feel like comfortable.
Right.
You know, she didn't know too many people and they didn't really make her feel welcome.
Mm-hmm.
As to where Kiana already had friends because of sports that she plays, so she felt welcome in the school. She walked around, she had people to sit with at lunch. My older daughter was always with her sister.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, I'm grade 11 hanging out with my little grade 9 sister because I don't really know anybody. And for her, like, her sport was volleyball, but that didn't start till, winter. So she would have had to go at least 2 or 3 months,
Right.
before she would be able to make friends or to feel, I guess, something that made her happy.
So how do you feel as a teacher about culture and how it affects the adolescent learner?
I think it's important for all kids to know who they are and where they come from. I think that it builds confidence, gives them a well-rounded, to be proud and strong, and to when they encounter racism or they encounter people who maybe think they're different or say things, they're so I guess strong with who they are, it doesn't bother them. And when they don't have that, I see a lot of kids, they don't have that to cling on to make them confident, that they just they hide, they don't want to do anything. And I see that happen a lot in Kenora. At certain schools, they really separate. All the Aboriginal kids are over here, all the non-native kids are over here. And you find some of them, they'll cross that line, they'll go to the other side and they'll fit in well. I think those are the ones that are pretty strong and confident with who they are, That's why I always encourage my daughters to do what they want to do and to show other kids that it's possible. 'Cause Aboriginal people, for some reason, they're really shy. Huh, girls?
I mean,
Like, say your friends or kids you see at school, right?
yeah, yeah.
They don't want to participate, they just want to be on the sidelines watching.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they have that self-confidence to say, like, I can do this or I can play this sport. And I think that being proud of who you are, a lot of times you're made to feel embarrassed to be native,
Right.
especially around here. Natives don't have a good reputation, or anywhere for that matter. They're alcoholics and they're, always the ones getting in trouble. And in our community here, like, a lot of the Aboriginal people are homeless,
Right.
so they're the ones on the streets.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for people to not have that stereotype placed on all Aboriginals. I've never experienced racism here, but I see it.
Right.
And I don't know if it's because of the way, we carry ourselves, or the people that we meet, we just get to know them and then they don't think of us that way. But I always feel sad when I see people treat Aboriginal people bad, and it's like, they just assume everybody's the same way.
Yeah.
And I think kids go through that too.
Mm.
You know, you go to a school where you're outnumbered, right?
Yeah.
And you're labeled already.
Mhm.
And it's not just because of what you do, it's because of what kids are taught.
That's
So,
true.
taught at home, they carry that with them. So I think, what was your question again? You can point out a tangent.
So, no. How do you feel as a teacher that you teach grade 5?
Yeah.
How do you feel culture would affect the adolescent learner? Like if you had to teach at TA, how do you think being Aboriginal, would you go about encouraging inclusiveness and trying to displace misconceptions?
Yeah, that's one of the first things I would do, because I even do that right now. Like when we go on trips and stuff, we have a lot of kids who don't leave the reserve very often, so they have their stereotypes about non-natives. So that's something that I do as a teacher, is we talk about, you know, how, like the assumptions that are made because of what their parents have gone through, say the racism that they've gone through, they project that onto their kids. You know, so I have to tell kids well, only white people do that. Like, who says only
Yeah.
white people do that? Like, that's not true, you know. So I have a lot of that I have to kind of unteach to kids in grade 5. So I would think it'd be the same way in town, you know, like you can't blame the kids for their ignorance if they're not being taught.
Right.
So how do you combat that? You teach them.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to give them the skills and the tools to understand and to be more compassionate. So it kind of goes both ways, right?
Right. You guys were saying that because you go to a Catholic school, you have to go to religion class,
Mhm.
but that Native Studies, that course is offered as an optional course. How does that make you guys feel? Like, how does that make you feel when you go into the school and you have to sit in religion class, but, you know, there's students that don't have to go to their Native Studies course?
Fair or not fair?
Not fair,
Why is
Right.
it not fair?
because it gets forced on us.
Yeah.
I'd rather have to do Ojibwe grade 9, 10, and 11 than go to religion class and do it for all my high school years.
Because I'm not Catholic. That's what
Yeah.
You think because you're not Catholic it makes it worse?
Mm.
Is that what you said? So, not being Catholic, but having, being Aboriginal and having that as your culture, how does it affect you as a learner when you're in that classroom? Do you feel more connected to what you're learning? Do you participate more often?
Like being in a religion course?
Yeah, like would you want to be an active learner? Would you be, let's say, actually even listening to the teacher in religion class? No.
I don't really listen that much in religion class.
I think it's a little bit easier because a lot of the things they teach in a religion course is how to be a good person, how to live a good life, how to be caring, how to be helpful, and that kind of falls in place with our 7 grandfather teachings.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of the things, like I know when I've seen some of her work that she has to create for a religion course, it's similar to what our 7 grandfather teachings are. So I think that it's easy for her to relate to it.
Right.
Because it is about being a good person and living the Montezuma, the good life, and I think that's what they teach.
Mm-hmm.
As parents, we've always told them to be open to different types of teachings, because we want people to respect us as Aboriginal people and what our teachings are. So we need to respect other people's cultures and their teachings also.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So that's kind of how we prepared them for that, knowing they'd be going to a Catholic school.
Right.
And knowing that the school has a reputation for trying to incorporate more Native things,
Right.
but I think for the number of students they have, they could probably still improve on that. You know, there's
Mm.
probably lots that could still be done, because there is a lot of Native students at your school, right?
Mm.
With all the surrounding communities that send their kids into Kenora for school, I think that there's still more that can be done. And since Kiana's been there in grade 9, I have seen things transpiring and it getting better.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful for that. But I also agree with what they say, that if they have to take a religious course, then it should be mandatory for all the non-native students to take an Aboriginal course.
Right.
So that way they'd be a little bit more educated,
Right.
and they wouldn't believe just what's said or what's heard, because they'd actually be taught.
So, just one more time, how do you guys, like, explain again the difference, the way you feel when you walk into Bay Bombay versus the high school you're attending now?
Feel at home when we went to Bay, and then it's not a bad feeling when I walk into my school now. It just doesn't feel right.
Doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
Like when you walk into TA, you see a chapel right away.
Yeah, you walk right in and you see a chapel right away.
What do you see at Bay Bombay when you walk in?
A painting of a native man.
So, how do you guys think that affects you as a learner? Like, do you feel when you go to school, like, because your culture might not be with you every day, and paintings or teachings or that sort of stuff isn't there? Do you feel like when you're sitting in class you can't learn as well as you would if you were at Bay Bombay?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah. So my last special question for you girls. So how, in your own words, like, how do you think then, in general, when you think about culture, now that you reflected and you know that you have a hard time connecting with your culture at the high school, how do you think culture in general affects a learner? So another student, let's say, who might come from another culture or background, how do you think culture itself affects you as a learner?
I think that would be tough for you guys to answer, because they attended Aboriginal school since they were little.
Right.
So they grew up, that's why it probably feels so close to home for them, because that's where they grew up, that's what they know. They did leave for 2 years when they were small, and we moved to Sault Ste. Marie, and they attended elementary school there. So I don't think that, if they didn't know any different, I don't think it would affect them as much.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because like I said, they grew up at a First Nations school, they grew up around that, and they went there all the way, like, till grade 7, and her till grade 8. So that's why they know how it feels to be there compared to how it is to be here. And to be in a Catholic school or not Catholic, that's another challenge, right?
Right.
They could have attended the high school here that's not a Catholic school, maybe they wouldn't feel as much, you know?
So maybe you guys can answer that. If you went to a public school that, let's say, didn't incorporate like religion so much, do you think that maybe your culture would still almost be there because it's not hidden in a religion or a mandatory religion class? Do you think you would be better off at a public school?
Kind of, but
Yeah.
I'm not saying that learning about Catholic religion is bad. Like, it's fun to learn about and like lots of interesting stuff, but I just don't like how they force it on you, and like how you have to take religion and you can't, and you don't have to take Ojibwe.
That would be your biggest,
Yeah.
if you had to say one thing that really stuck out, that would be it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that kids treat you different because you're Aboriginal at your school?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. How about you, Mariah?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. That's where it comes down to like parents' choice, right? Like,
Yeah.
what do I think is going to be better? And for me, it's because we had friends who were administrators in the high school, friends who were teachers, previous family members who attended the school. It is smaller than Beaver Brae. There's less, I guess, less problems as drugs and alcohol and fighting and stuff. There's less of that at TA, so it was a safer school. And maybe that has to do with the faith too, right? But
Yeah.
maybe it's a little bit stricter. I don't think that they've ever expressed that they didn't want to be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like our oldest daughter did, and as soon as she said she didn't feel comfortable, like she came back to the reserve and it was fine. It's always their choice, and I think that's the hard part is we're making our kids make a choice to get the quality of education that they need. Because the First Nations schools don't get funded properly to offer these things or to be able to give the kids these extra things that, say, provincial
Right.
schools can.
So I wanted to ask you, as a mom, how do you think culture affects an adolescent learner?
I think it's important that they feel comfortable. I think it's important that they learn about who they are on a regular basis, on a daily basis. So I would have to agree with the, I like that they can take like a native course every year.
Right.
Just like you have to take religion every year, I would think that they would be able to do that because it's gonna make them stronger adults to be secure with who they are. I think it's gonna make them more well-rounded, more confident. You know, they can kind of take on anything because they know who they are and where they come from. I'm thankful that they were able to go to school on a First Nation for as long as they did. I grew up in the city. I was the only Aboriginal person at my school, 5,000 high school, called all kinds of names, you name it, Pocahontas, and always made fun of for who I was, and I think that's something I was afraid of for them. I wanted them to be around their language and their culture and the teachings on a daily basis, and that's why I chose to raise them in their dad's home community. And when they got old enough and I realized that, you know, now we're making life decisions for them as to what's in their best interest. Do they stay in the small community where maybe they are a little more comfortable, or do I provide them with the tools to venture out and to be successful, you know? And I'm lucky that they're kind of pretty well-rounded themselves and able to go to a First Nations school and still be successful. But I think that's a challenge for any Aboriginal student. And there's a lot of kids who have not attended schools in their communities and had that strong cultural content, and they go to school with you guys now, right? And they don't really know as much as you do about ceremonies, about dancing, about the teachings, the language. So they've lost a lot of that by not attending a school that was more culturally based as to where they were able to thrive, because it's where they started.
Right.
And they had that. So they grew up with that, and now like it's so instilled in them that I feel confident they're gonna be successful now. Because they know who they are, they know where they come from, and they're proud of who they are. They don't, you know, they're not ashamed. Are you ashamed to be Anishinaabe? You're proud to be Anishinaabe?
So, like, you raised a good point, because you were saying because they attended prior at Bay, they got to learn about themselves, keep their identity, understand their culture. How would you then put into perspective somebody who, like you just said, might not have come from there? How do you think that affects their learning? How do you think they would be maybe behave in a classroom, or how they maybe the willingness for them to participate? Or
it probably would be tough. They'd probably have not be as excited or as into it if it wasn't like so it's like Italian,
right,
or French, or you know. But then again, in Canada now we have lots for French. There's French immersion schools. You guys have French, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they have the option to take French or Ojibwe. But I think kids would all thrive if they were able to be embraced and engulfed in their culture, whatever it may be.
right.
So how do schools do that? How do they take such a diverse community now, right? We have so many different cultures. How do you support the students like that?
That's a good question.
Isn't that would be tough, right?
Yeah.
I can only speak to the Aboriginal aspect of it, because in our community, the majority of the students that aren't non-Aboriginal are Aboriginal, but
Right.
we also have Italian, we also have you know, Muslims, we also have French kids, there's German kids, so I think it would be tough, but that has to come from home too, you know? Like, it has to be your priority and from the home. You have to submerge your kids in that and give them the ability to be successful and be proud of who they are. Schools encourage it, but it comes from home first, I think.
That's a good point. So, just to finish off then, so now that we've talked about you guys being at that high school and leaving Bay Bombay, overall, do you still feel you're experiencing a positive learning experience, even though you come and remember what it's like to be at a school where your culture is more involved? Do you guys still feel like, yay, TA?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mariah?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what I mean. I think that they are trying to do a good job of making Aboriginal students, feel more comfortable, and like there's a drum group. They have a mini powwow. They have an Aboriginal area where kids can go to study. They have different supports for Aboriginal students, and that's all good. That's all positive. But I also think though too, like we live in a world where when you go out there, it's not going to be non-native and native. It's just all kinds of people. So I always thought to make my kids proud of who they are, know who they are, so their self-esteem would be high, and at the same time to educate themselves too, because it's like they live in two worlds.
Mm-hmm.
They're Aboriginal, and they're also going to have to go out and work, and we don't live in the bush and live off the land anymore. We have to go out and get jobs like everybody else. So they have to be able to embrace who they are as Aboriginal young women, and then go out there and get jobs too, right?
That's very true.
But it's also important too, because a lot of Aboriginal people don't graduate from high school and go on to post-secondary education. So it's always about being role models and about encouraging them, like, yes, you can do this, anything you put your mind to, you can do. And then maybe other students, other people will see it. Maybe their younger family members, or maybe their friends, or people in our community will see, like, well, they can do it, I can do it too. So it's not just about them, it's about encouraging other people too,
Right.
based on the positive things that they're doing.
Very nice. That's a good point. All right. Well, I think that's we'll wrap it up there. You guys want to say bye to the camera?